I stared in disbelief as the HOA bulldozed my private road, destroying the only access to my family's historic property, all to build their luxury swimming pool for the community good. But when I discovered the forgotten easement document, in my grandfather's war chest, I knew exactly how to get justice. Would you believe a single electrical junction box and one well-timed power outage during their grand opening gala was all it took? The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday. Innocuous. White envelope with the Whispering Pines Estates logo stamped in the corner. My coffee went cold as I read it. Third notice this month. Stephanie Greene, HOA president, was nothing if not persistent. Through my kitchen window, I could see her Mercedes parked across the street, pretending to check her mailbox while actually watching my reaction. 6 months into my retirement after 20 years of military service, and I was at war again, this time with suburbia. Dad, who keeps sending these? My daughter Lily grabbed a banana from the counter, backpack slung over one shoulder. At 16, she had my stubbornness and her mother's sharp eyes. Our friendly neighborhood dictators, I muttered, handing her the letter. They want to acquire our access road. Can they do that? She scanned the formal language. I thought Great-Grandpa built that road during the Depression. She was right. The winding gravel path cutting through the edge of our 5 acres had been there since 1936, long before the surrounding farmland transformed into cookie-cutter houses with matching mailboxes. My grandfather, a master electrician, had built our family home and the road leading to it, installing the area's first electrical grid as rural electrification spread across the country. I watched Stephanie make a show of checking her watch before driving away. Her husband, Victor, the HOA treasurer, ran Greenfield Development, the company that had swallowed up every available parcel around us. Every month they sent offers for our land. Every month I refused. They can try, I answered finally. But that road is ours. Your great-grandfather's easement documents are clear. I'd been back from my final deployment for 6 months, determined to restore the old family property that had fallen into disrepair during my military career. My daughter deserved the stable home I'd never given her during years of relocations and deployments. My wife hadn't lived to see this place again. Cancer took her while I was stationed overseas, but I'd made her a promise to bring Lily home. The next morning, instead of continuing my work rebuilding the old barn, I drove into town. The county records office was a squat brick building that smelled of dust and old paper. Maria Hernandez, who'd been the clerk since before I was born, brightened when I walked in. Jack Sullivan, haven't seen you since your homecoming. How's that beautiful daughter of yours? Growing too fast, I smiled. I need to see the original property maps for the Sullivan place. Having some trouble with Whispering Pines. Her expression darkened. You and everyone else they border. What are they after now? My access road, claiming it interferes with community development. She disappeared into the back room, returning with a large leather portfolio. Your grandfather's original surveys should be in here. Man was meticulous about documentation. As I spread the yellowed pages across the table, Maria leaned in. Between us, they've been pulling all kinds of records about your property boundary. That Victor Greene was in here yesterday asking about easements. My stomach tightened. The papers confirmed what I already knew. The road was entirely on Sullivan land, with a registered easement connecting to the county road. Thanks, Maria. Can I get copies of all these? Already made them for you, she winked. And Jack, be careful. Those HOA folks play dirty. My sister lost her koi pond to them last year, claimed it was a mosquito hazard. Back home, I found Lily, in animated conversation with our neighbor, Mr. Takahashi, a retired engineer who lived in the only other holdout property against Whispering Pines. Your father was military too? Lily was asking. 492nd Regiment, Mr. Takahashi nodded solemnly. Most decorated unit in U.S. history, all Japanese Americans. He bought this land when he returned from Europe. Not many would sell to a Japanese family back then. My grandfather helped him with the paperwork, I added, joining them at the fence. They became good friends. Jack, Mr. Takahashi's expression was grave. They've been surveying near my eastern boundary. Equipment showed up this morning. A chill ran through me. I'll check it out. After Mr. Takahashi left, I retrieved my grandfather's old war chest from the attic. Among his WBT memorabilia lay the property documents I remembered from childhood. Handwritten notes, maps and contracts detailing not just our land, but his work installing the area's electrical infrastructure. What's that? Lily pointed to a faded blueprint. I unfolded it carefully. The original electrical grid for the county. Your great-grandfather designed it. See this junction here? It's on our property near the old oak. Everything east of it runs through our land, including Whispering Pines. Lily's eyes widened. Including Whispering Pines, I confirmed, just as the unmistakable sound of heavy machinery rumbled from the direction of our access road. I sprinted to the front of our property, Lily close at my heels. The sound grew louder. The grinding gears of an excavator tearing into gravel and dirt. We rounded the bend just in time to see a yellow bulldozer rip through the century-old oak that had marked the entrance to our private road for generations. "Stop!" I shouted, waving my arms at the operator. "This is private property!" Either he couldn't hear me over the engine or chose to ignore me. The excavator continued its advance, already having carved a 20-foot gash into my access road. Behind it stood 3 more construction vehicles and a group of men in matching polo shirts with the Whispering Pines logo. Among them, Stephanie Greene stood with a clipboard, directing operations like a field general. Her husband Victor was speaking animatedly into his phone, gesturing toward their new luxury development across the street, its half-finished clubhouse visible through the trees. "Dad, they can't do this, right?" Lily's voice cracked. This road was her bike route to school, the path her mother and I had walked when we first bought back my family's property. "No, they absolutely cannot," I answered, marching directly toward Stephanie. 2 security guards in khaki uniforms moved to intercept me, but I sidestepped them. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice carrying over the engine noise. The bulldozer paused, its operator finally noticing. The commotion. Stephanie's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Sullivan, we sent multiple notices about this easement acquisition. The community improvement project begins today." There was no acquisition. I never agreed to sell anything, I countered, pulling out my phone to record the destruction. "This is trespassing and property damage. Stop your equipment now." Victor ended his call and approached. Section 17 of the County Municipal Code allows for community development access when properly filed. We've secured all necessary permits. He waved a document with an official-looking stamp. I reached for it, but he pulled it back. "Our lawyers have verified everything. The HOA board vote was unanimous." "I'm not even part of your HOA," I snapped. "My property predates your development by 80 years. "The road access affects community property," Stephanie interjected smoothly. "We've filed for eminent domain consideration through our municipal agreement. The notification was delivered last week." "What notification?" "I received nothing about eminent domain." "It was properly served," Victor shrugged. "Not our problem if you didn't read it." The bulldozer revved again, continuing its destruction of my road. Crushed gravel and ancient oak splinters littered what had once been a shaded drive. "This is going to stop right now." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "I'm reporting illegal trespassing and destruction of private property." Victor smirked. "Go ahead. Our permits are in order." While waiting for the police, I took videos of everything: the equipment, the operators, the HOA board members supervising. Lily had run back to the house to retrieve our property documents. The destruction continued unabated, the road being systematically torn apart and graded flat. Sheriff Dawson arrived 15 minutes later, his cruiser kicking up dust as it parked alongside the construction equipment. I'd known Jim Dawson since high school. We'd played football together before I enlisted. "Jack," he nodded, taking in the scene. "Got a report of a property dispute. They're bulldozing my private road without permission," I explained, showing him the property maps Lily had brought. "This has been Sullivan land since 1936, Sheriff Dawson frowned, reviewing the documents, then turned to Stephanie. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your permits for this work." With practiced efficiency, she produced a folder filled with official papers. "Everything is in order, Sheriff. We have approval from County Planning and Development. The easement has been legally reassigned." "Reassigned? That's impossible," I protested. The sheriff studied the documents, his expression growing troubled. He pulled me aside. "Jack, these appear legitimate. There's a judge's signature here, approving temporary easement reassignment pending final eminent domain ruling." "Let me see that," I insisted. The document showed Judge Franklin's signature, the same judge who regularly played golf with Victor. The paper cited community necessity and infrastructure development as justification. "This is bullshit, Jim. I was never notified of any hearing. They're stealing my land to build a swimming pool for their gated community." "Swimming and wellness center," Stephanie corrected, overhearing. "A vital community resource that will enhance property values throughout the area." Sheriff Dawson looked uncomfortable. "I need to call this in, verify these orders." While he returned to his cruiser, Victor approached with a document. "We're not unreasonable, Sullivan. Here's our offer for the easement. $25,000, one-time payment. Sign now and we'll handle all the paperwork." I glanced at the paper. The fine print included not just the road easement, but access rights to a substantial portion of my eastern boundary. Exactly where the electrical junction box was located. "Not interested," I replied coldly. Victor's professional veneer slipped slightly. "Don't be stubborn. This development will happen with or without your cooperation. The judge already sided with us on the initial hearing." "Initial hearing I wasn't even notified about," I countered. "Notice was delivered," Stephanie insisted, though she wouldn't meet my eyes. Sheriff Dawson returned, looking apologetic. "The permits check out, Jack. They have temporary authorization to continue work while the final ruling is pending. You'll have a chance to present your case at the hearing next month." "Next month? By then, my entire road will be gone." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "My hands are tied legally, but I'd get a lawyer fast." As he left, the bulldozers resumed their work with renewed vigor. Within an hour, half my road had been transformed into a flat dirt path, twice its original width. Survey stakes with orange flags marked the outline of what would become the edge of their new pool complex. I stood watching, fists clenched at my sides, as decades of family history were scraped away by heavy machinery. Lily placed her hand in mine, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "What do we do now, Dad?" I squeezed her hand, my mind already turning to the electrical grid blueprints in my grandfather's chest. "Now we fight back, but not the way they're expecting." I spent the rest of the day making calls, first to Alan Rodriguez, my former unit buddy who'd become an attorney specializing in property law, then to the county commissioner's office, leaving increasingly frustrated messages that went unreturned. By evening, I'd compiled every document related to our property, spreading them across the dining room table in chronological order. "They can't just take it, can they?" Lily asked, helping me organize the papers. Her college applications sat, abandoned on the counter. Stanford and MIT would have to wait. This felt more important. Legally, it's complicated, I admitted, but something doesn't add up. They're moving too fast, like they're racing against a deadline. Mr. Takahashi knocked on our back door at dusk, bringing homemade tempura and disturbing news. They just served me papers too, he said, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he handed me the document. Claiming my eastern garden encroaches on HOA drainage requirements. I skimmed the legal jargon, recognizing the same judges. Signature. Franklin again. He's signing everything they put in front of him. My father faced similar tactics after the war, Mr. Takahashi said quietly. People who wanted our land found friendly officials, created problems where none existed. But why? Now, Lily asked, passing him a cup of tea. The development's been there for years. The country club membership, Mr. Takahashi suggested. I heard they're finalizing an agreement with Emerald Green's golf course. Very exclusive, but they need certain amenities to qualify. Like a luxury pool complex, I muttered. The pieces were starting to fit together. Alan called back as we were finishing dinner. His assessment wasn't encouraging. They're exploiting a loophole in the county development code, he explained. Since they're technically designated as a municipal improvement district, they can petition for temporary easements. It's meant for utilities and emergency services, not building swimming pools, but the language is vague enough. Can you help me fight it? I'll file an emergency injunction tomorrow, but with Judge Franklin assigned to the case. He let the implication hang. You need leverage, Jack, something beyond legal arguments. After Mr. Takahashi left, I returned to my grandfather's documents, searching for anything that might give us an advantage. The electrical blueprints kept drawing my attention. Dad, what exactly did Great-Grandpa do? Lily asked, studying the faded schematics. He was one of the first master electricians in the county, I explained. When the Rural Electrification Administration started bringing power to farming communities in the 1930s, he helped design and build the local grid. That's why our property has the main junction box. He insisted on maintaining oversight of the system he built. So we control the electricity for Whispering Pines? Not exactly, I hedged, though the blueprints suggested otherwise. There's an easement arrangement. The power company has right of access, but the main junction and circuit breakers are on our property. Lily's eyes lit up with the same expression her mother used to get when solving a complex problem. That's our leverage. I spent the night in my grandfather's workshop reviewing newer electrical diagrams I'd obtained from my electrician license courses years ago. The modern grid had been updated, but the fundamental architecture remained the same. The main distribution hub sat about 30 yards from where they'd begun destroying my road. At dawn, I hiked out to the junction box, hidden in a stand of pines that had been marked for clearing. The padlock still accepted the key my grandfather had shown me as a child. Inside, the array of circuit breakers, transformers, and junction points sprawled like a mechanical city. Despite decades of updates, the box still bore my grandfather's nameplate, Sullivan Electric, 1938. With my phone, I documented everything, then carefully closed and locked the box. A plan was forming, but I needed more information. That afternoon, while bulldozers continued methodically erasing my road, I drove to the county records office again. Maria greeted me with sympathy. I heard what happened, Jack. Disgraceful. Need anything you have on electrical easements for my property, I explained. And any recent permit applications from Whispering Pines or Greenfield Development. Her eyes widened. They filed for a major electrical upgrade permit just last week, rushing it through for some big event. The inspector mentioned it yesterday. The electrical upgrade documentation revealed what they'd been hiding. To support their new wellness center, they needed substantially increased power capacity, specifically routed through the junction on my property. The application mentioned a grand opening gala scheduled in just 2 weeks, with county officials and potential country club investors attending. They never applied for permission to upgrade the junction on my land, I noted, scanning the forms. Maria lowered her voice. Between us, Victor Greene has been pressuring departments to fast-track everything. Rumor is, if they don't get country club status by next month, they lose their investors. As I gathered the documents, Maria slid one more folder across the desk. Your grandfather filed this amended easement agreement in 1952. Most people don't know about it, since it's cross-referenced under utilities, not property. Inside was a legal agreement I'd never seen before. My grandfather, foreseeing potential disputes, had secured unusual rights over the electrical infrastructure on our property. The power company had easement access, but any modifications required explicit Sullivan family approval. I returned home to find Alan waiting in my driveway, his expression grim. Judge Franklin denied our emergency injunction, he said without preamble. They can continue work pending the final hearing. When? 6 weeks from now. He gestured toward the road, where the destruction had progressed significantly. By then, your road will be gone, and their pool will be half built. I showed him the electrical easement document. His eyes widened as he read. This could work, he said slowly. They can't legally upgrade the junction without your written permission, and without that upgrade, their fancy pool complex won't have enough power, I finished. And neither will their grand opening gala. I watched a cement truck rumble past, heading toward what used to be my Oak Line Drive. They destroyed my road without permission. Let's see how they handle a taste of their own medicine. The next morning, I called in a favor from Carlos Jimenez, who'd served with me in Afghanistan and now worked for the regional power company. We met at a diner 20 miles out of town, where no one from Whispering Pines would recognize us. This is legit, Jack, Carlos confirmed after reviewing my grandfather's easement documentation. It's in our system too, flagged as a special jurisdiction zone. Any modifications to that junction require property owner sign-off. But Greenfield Development applied for an upgrade without my signature. Carlos nodded, sipping his coffee. They submitted through an expedited municipal channel. Someone higher up approved it despite the flag. We're scheduled to install the upgrade this Friday. Can you delay it? Legally. I can flag it for review based on this document, he said. That'll freeze everything for at least 10 days while legal sorts it out. But after that, 10 days is all I need. Back at home, I found Lily surrounded by neighbors in our living room. Mrs. Rodriguez from down the street, the Kims from the farmhouse on the north side, even old Mr. Jenkins, who rarely left his house, all had received various citations or legal threats from Whispering Pines in recent weeks. Dad, everyone's being pressured, Lily explained. It's not just us. Mrs. Rodriguez's garden had been cited for non-conforming plants. The Kims were battling over their barn height. Mr. Jenkins had been fined for his bird feeders. They're clearing obstacles, Mr. Kim said. Anything that might interfere with their country club certification. Or anyone who might object at county hearings, Mrs. Rodriguez added. I shared what I'd learned about the electrical junction and the upcoming gala. The neighbors exchanged meaningful looks. My daughter works for the catering company they booked, Mrs. Rodriguez offered. She says it's massive, flying in potential investors from all over the country. And the electrical upgrade? Mr. Jenkins asked. Won't happen in time if I can help it, I answered. The construction continued relentlessly over the next week. My entire access road was now gone, replaced by a wide dirt path that would become the entrance to their pool complex. Surveyors had marked areas of my property boundary with flags that seemed to creep inward with each passing day. True to his word, Carlos had flagged the electrical upgrade for review. Victor Greene himself had called me, his initial friendliness quickly dissolving into thinly veiled threats. This obstruction is going to cost you, Sullivan, he warned. We'll add it to the lien we're placing on your property for impeding community development. Funny how you suddenly care about proper approvals, I replied before hanging up. Stephanie escalated her campaign of harassment. County inspectors suddenly appeared, citing our barn for structural concerns, our workshop for permit violations. Each morning brought new official letters threatening fines or condemning portions of our property. They're trying to bankrupt us before the hearing, I told Alan during one of our strategy sessions. Classic developer tactics, he agreed. But they've made one critical mistake. He pointed to a paragraph in their electrical upgrade application. In their haste, they'd listed the junction box as being on HOA property, a documentable falsehood on an official application. That's fraudulent misrepresentation, Alan explained, especially since we can prove they knew the truth. With the gala just 3 days away, I hiked out to check the junction box again. To my alarm, I found fresh footprints and signs that someone had attempted to tamper with the lock. I installed a motion-activated camera nearby and added my own padlock to the enclosure. That night, the camera alerted me to movement. Checking the live feed on my phone, I watched as 2 men in Greenfield Development uniforms examined the junction box. One spoke into a radio, then both quickly departed when headlights appeared on the adjacent road. The next morning, Carlos called with disturbing news. They're trying to bypass the review, he said urgently, claiming emergency infrastructure. Necessity. My supervisor's under pressure to approve the work tomorrow, despite the easement issues. Can they do that? Legally? No. Practically? They've got friends in high places. I called an emergency meeting with the neighbors and Alan. We gathered around my kitchen table as dusk fell, the sound of construction equipment finally silent for the day. We need more than just delaying tactics now, Alan advised. They're willing to break rules to get what they want. Mr. Takahashi, quiet until now, spoke up. My father always said, when your opponent shows desperation, that's when you find their true weakness. Lily, who'd been researching county regulations online, suddenly straightened. I think I found something. The country club certification they need. It requires proof of all infrastructure being properly permitted and inspected, including electricity, Mrs. Kim noted. Exactly. Lily turned her laptop around, showing us the requirements, and it specifically states that any easements must be properly documented and approved by all parties. Alan leaned forward, eyes scanning the document. If we can prove they knowingly falsified the electrical easement information, we could stop the certification, I finished. But we need evidence they knew, Mrs. Rodriguez pointed out. Something concrete. I thought about the camera footage, the rushed applications, the pattern of deception. I think it's time we set a trap. The plan came together over the next hour. Each neighbor took responsibility for a different element. The Kims would document the ongoing boundary encroachment. Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter would provide the gala's timeline. Mr. Jenkins, a retired electrician himself, would help me with the technical aspects. What if they managed to get emergency approval tomorrow? Lily asked as our neighbors departed. I opened my grandfather's blueprint again, pointing to a detail I hadn't mentioned previously. See this secondary control relay? It was my grandfather's backup system. The junction doesn't just distribute power to Whispering Pines, it controls how it's distributed. Meaning? Meaning that even if they upgrade the capacity, we still control the flow, I explained, and I'm betting they don't even know it exists. The next day, while bulldozers began pouring the concrete foundation where my road had been, Mr. Jenkins and I made our preparations at the junction box. The modifications were subtle but significant, nothing that would endanger anyone, but enough to give us control when we needed it. By nightfall, my motion sensor camera captured exactly what I'd been waiting for, Victor Greene himself supervising. 2 technicians, as they installed new equipment on the junction box. They'd brought their own padlock, removing mine in the process. Got you, I whispered, saving the footage. The trap was set. I stood at the edge of my newly rebuilt private road, watching as the last of the gravel was spread perfectly across the path. The oak trees might take years to regrow, But we'd won something more important than shade. We'd proven that sometimes one person with the right documents and enough determination can stand up to corruption and win. So if you've ever felt powerless against a homeowners association, a greedy developer, or anyone who thinks their money gives them the right to steamroll over your rights, remember my story. That junction box my grandfather installed 80 years ago saved our property, and sometimes the most powerful weapon you have is hidden in plain sight, in old documents, forgotten easements, or legal rights that others hope you'll never discover. They say you should never go to war with people who control your neighborhood, but they forget that community is built on more than fancy pools and matching mailboxes. It's built on justice, respect, and standing together when someone tries to bully their neighbors. If you enjoyed this story of how one veteran used a forgotten electrical easement to fight back against an HOA that destroyed his private road, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty more stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary ways to stand up for what's right. And remember, sometimes the power to change things is literally in your hands, whether it's an electrical junction box or the courage to fight back when everyone tells you to give up. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to deal with an overbearing HOA or if you've found a creative way to protect what's yours. And don't forget to like and share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that David still beats Goliath when he knows exactly where to aim. Until next time, this is Jack Sullivan, reminding you that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's making sure justice flows as reliably as electricity.